Hello and welcome to our 7-8 minutes of weekly Torah talk. Our guest today is Rabbi Annie Tucker of the Beit Hillel congregation Bnei Emunah in Illinois. Hello, Rabbi. Thank you for being with us.
Hello. It's wonderful to be here.
Our parsha this week is Parashat Pinchas, and in this parsha, Aaron's grandson Pinchas is rewarded for an act of zealotry committed last week in killing Prince Zimri and his Midianite princess lover. A census of the people counts more than 600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 60. Moses is instructed on how the land of Canaan is to be divided among the tribes. The 5 daughters of Tzlofchad petition Moses. They ask to be granted a portion of the land belonging to their father who died without sons. God accepts their claim. Moses empowers Joshua to succeed him. The first pasuk of the parsha, or the first 2 psukim say, וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, פנחס בן אלעזר בן אהרון הכהן השיב את חמתי מעל בני ישראל בקנאו את קנאתי בתוכם, ולא כיליתי את בני ישראל בקנאתי. The Lord spoke to Moses saying, Pinchas the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron the Kohen, has turned my anger away from the children of Israel by his zealotry, avenging me among them, so that I did not destroy the children of Israel because of my zeal. So Rabbi, let's talk about 5 women. Machla, Noah, Hogla, Milka, and Tirza. Who are they?
So these women, I think, are in a lot of ways the very first feminists in the Bible, or amongst the first feminists in the Bible, certainly. They're women who have a father who dies, leaving no male heirs. And so these daughters petition Moses and ultimately petition God to be able to inherit their father's land on their father's behalf. And so to carry forward his name and to have access to the land just like their male counterparts.
Right. And when they turn to Moses, Moses does not really have an answer for them.
Yeah, there's so many interesting elements of this parsha. One, of course, is sort of the feminist element, but the other is this notion that Moses, who very often knows exactly what to do, finds himself a little bit at odds here. He's not entirely sure, and so he brings the women's request to God, and God settles the matter for Moses and for the women.
And any idea why is Moses lost for word in this specific occasion?
I mean, I like to imagine that Moses was actually sympathetic to the women, and I think that he probably is, right? He could have said to them, no, this is contrary to Jewish law, or I can't see this working. But I think that he realizes that what they're asking for has some fairness to it and is just. And at the same time, there's some complications. As we go on to see a little bit later in Torah, there's some conditions put on the inheritance of land by these women. They have to marry essentially relatives of theirs to keep the land within the same tribe. And I think that Moses probably is wise to those complications and is not entirely sure that he can adjudicate this one on his own.
Right, and you said this is a case of feminism in the Torah, and I wonder about 2 things. So the first one would be, as I mentioned earlier, in this parsha we read about the census, and in the census we count only the men. So
yes.
How do we have both feminism and such census in the same parsha?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The census, in a lot of ways, is for very practical reasons. It's really a census for purposes of military conscription, and so it's not only that men are counted and not women, but also the Levites are typically excluded because they're not fighters, and only men of certain ages are counted. And so there's a part of me that wishes that the census were different. I like the idea that all members of a community should be counted and are all precious to God, and I think that they are. But I see the census as being really solely for practical military purposes, whereas here with the daughters of Tzlofchad, we get these women sort of pushing the boundaries of their community and doing so successfully.
Okay, and my second question about the feminist thing would be the following. The argument of the daughters, as the Torah tells it, is not quite feminist. They say to Moses, why should our father's name be eliminated from his family because he had no son? Give us a portion along with our father's brothers. So this is a patriarchal argument. They're not arguing for women's rights.
Yeah, though the way that I see it, these women are really savvy and they're really clever. And they know that in their time, the way to win the argument and to get what they want isn't to sort of fly the feminist flag, but it's to make the argument in a way that their male colleagues will sort of understand, to make it both about their father and his name and to make it about the land. And actually, one of the things that I find really interesting is I think that the text itself sort of has these feminist dimensions, but when you read a lot of the Midrashic commentary on Benot Tzlofchad, the rabbis actually really love these women. They see them as smart and they see them as clever and they see them as brave. And that also, it could so easily be otherwise, right? The rabbis could see these women as pushy and headstrong, and they really don't. They seem to admire the daughters of Tzlofchad, and they point out that one of the things that makes the women successful is that they sort of know how to use rhetoric in the right way. So I see them as being very savvy and very smart.
So you think this is really the argument that they make? It's not really what their true feelings are different.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I do think that they care about their father and their father's name and reputation. Certainly that's important. And also, again, the Midrash points out that the women really care about the land, that they understand that settling the land and holding on to the land and cultivating the land is important. So there's a piece of it that is present there also. But I also think that they sort of recognize that that for women not to inherit land or for their father's land to change hands just because he has no male heirs is not right and not just. And so I think they're motivated by that as well.
And the importance of the land, we see the importance of the land in the future when we read about the spouses that these 5 women find for themselves, right?
Absolutely. And we actually, in the book of Joshua, once the Torah concludes, when in the book of Joshua it sort of lists how the land is apportioned up, it makes clear that these women do in fact inherit. So lest you sort of read this piece and think, oh, well, this is very nice, Moses tells them they'll inherit, but it never ends up coming to be. The book of Joshua shows us that indeed it did come to be, and that these women are able to carry the land forward.
Do you also find something interesting about the fact that these are 5 sisters, about the sisterhood thing?
Yeah, and it's really interesting. When the daughters are mentioned, there are 2 different places in Torah where they're mentioned, and the order of their names is different in the 2 different places. Right. So the rabbis, of course, find this fascinating and point this out. And they say that in one place they're listed in order of age, which sort of makes sense, and in the other place they're listed in order of wisdom, which is a kind of funny thing that the age and wisdom don't entirely line up. Right. But it does make me think about sort of the dynamics between these women, and you can sort of imagine, were they all aligned in how they were to make this petition to Moses? Did they have disagreements about how they should do it? I'm sure there were complicated sibling dynamics, but somehow they come together and they make a successful petition.
And thinking about other female characters in the Torah, and there aren't that many, how do they compare to other such women or to other women characters?
Well, the other thing I like about Benot Tzlofchad is that a lot of times in the Bible, women are important because they're wives and they're mothers, right? They're important, and they may do important and useful and interesting things, even in their capacity as wives and mothers, but really their central role is in the family. And here with these daughters, we find, to the extent that their family relations are spoken about, it's more as daughters and sisters, but also the role that they play is much less in terms of having children and starting families, and much more in terms of settling the land and pushing the balance of Jewish law and all those things. And so I think that makes them really interesting heroines also.
Rabbi, thank you so much, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.